In this module, we're going to deal with your general business obligations under the money laundering regulations of 2017. HMRC are the supervisory authority for a state agency, and they dictate exactly what they expect you to do, and we'll look at that in the next few minutes. The first thing you have to do is to register with HMRC for money laundering purposes. It is an offence not to do that, and there are penalties that can be issued if you don't do that. As the supervisory authority, and supervision is a nicer word for enforcement, they dictate to you exactly what you should do, and they inspect your premises, do audits, and then issue penalties if you're not doing exactly what they expect you to do. They're self-funding, and so the issuing of penalties is something that they need to do in order to ensure they can continue to enforce the legislation. And they have issued some big penalties. Some of the corporates have been hit with very, very large penalties. Six-figure penalties have been issued. I'm not saying that any estate agent will get that sort of a penalty, but it is something to be aware of, that big penalties can be issued if you're not on the ball with your obligations. So the first thing you have to do is you have to ensure that you have a money laundering reporting officer. You will nominate that officer, and that officer will be responsible then for dealing with any reports of suspicious activity to the National Crime Agency. Every person in your business should know who the money laundering reporting officer is, and they should be well aware that if they have any suspicions, that's where they take the suspicions. Once a report to the money laundering reporting officer has been made, then no one must have any discussions about the potential for a report to the National Crime Agency, because that will be seen as tipping off, and that's another serious criminal offence. The money laundering reporting officer makes the decision as to whether to make a SARS report, a suspicious activity report. If they decide they're not going to make a report, then they must document the reasons for not doing that. The money laundering reporting officer will be personally responsible for all the actions that they take. The National Crime Agency will then consider the report that's made. They will pass the information on to HMRC or to the police or whoever will investigate the situation that's being reported, but the investigation will be down to those authorities, and the obligation that the National Crime Agency have towards you is to give you permission to carry on with that transaction. Now, they don't always do that. They sometimes say, no, you will need to stop. But in general terms, you will make the report, and then they will give you permission to continue with that transaction. You also need to appoint a compliance officer. The compliance officer takes responsibility for ensuring that the business complies with the regulations. Compliance officer makes sure that everybody has the right sort of training in place. They should be conducting audits to make sure that everybody is carrying out their money laundering obligations that they have in relation to customer due diligence. They must be screening employees to make sure that they have the integrity and they have the know-how to deal with money laundering situations. You must carry out a business risk assessment. So quite an involved process of looking at all aspects of your business to ensure that you've got everything covered and that you've got all the policies and the procedures, etc. in place to cover all the risks that your business might encounter. You will have to conduct customer due diligence on all your clients and sellers and all the buyers.